Elon. I've been following every press conference since January, and I can tell you that there was group thinking, but it was the opposite of what everybody said it was, and it still is. In my country, Germany, as late as March 11, Angela Merkel was still telling us that there was no way around 70% of the population getting COVID-19. And here are the reactions of the population when Angela Merkel told this to the population. I'm gonna translate for you guys. The delusion of corona is insane. Yeah, man. Where's the sign language interpreter? 2 deaths and 83 million. Panic. This time, thousands died to alcohol. Don't believe the hype. Which hype though? This clearly shows that there was no hype, besides people thinking there isn't hype. Somebody compared the normal flu numbers to corona? Oh, nobody thought of that. And that was March 11th. 5 days later, most of the governments did a 180 turnaround and locked down all the people. Together with the government, surprisingly, some of the people actually changed their mind. But it's still far from group thinking, as some recent events show. It's just that somehow all of us think the group that we are in is the minority group, and just we are the ones speaking out. Remember, that was also the case way back then, when I felt like I really was the only one, and everybody else just really, like 98% of the people were just thinking that they are still the minority, and they think everybody is just hyping it up. But who was everybody? Nobody was hyping it up. 16th of March, the Imperial College study appeared. And I still don't see how this could be new to people that should be most informed about this, because it was not new to me. And despite the people in your article, Elon, saying that the study turned out to be wrong, the study is actually quite accurate. It turns out the death rate displayed here is not the number for the reported cases, but the actual percentage of people dying of the whole population. Citywide, it says it's 196 out of 100,000, which would be for the whole population of NYC of 8.2 million, that would be 16,000 deaths. Which is more what we see. So you actually would have to multiply the 200 of 100,000 by 4 if you want to know how likely it is to die of COVID-19. Because 25% of people have immunity right now. If 100% would have immunity, you would have 4 times the deaths. Would everybody get infected by COVID-19? Probably not. If we would let it rip, then 70-80% maybe might get it. Now that 0.8% is not far off of the 0.9% that the Imperial College study predicted. Also, 0.9% of the Imperial College study is also of the infected people and not the whole population, of course. Also, the simple fact that we take the highest immunity number of all the New York districts, New York City, and write an article about that is introducing the survivorship bias to the numbers. The study was a best estimate with the information at the time, and it could have turned out worse, or it could have turned out better. But the 0.9% was the best estimate. So even if it turns out that the death rate, as this more recent study suggests, is more like 0.26%, which is great news, ranging from 0.1 to 0.8%. The Imperial College study back then was also a best estimate and not that far off, really. The 99.99% of people surviving in NYC, looking at only the under 49-year-olds, is a very catchy way to do it. First of all, the 0 to 49-year-olds is pretty unfair, because the 0 to 18-year-olds, like the kids, are really almost not getting and not being affected by the virus. Some of them are, and you see all those cases in the news. But in general, like, they are pretty safe. Where the 20 to 30 years old are not that affected. But like all those deaths you see from the 0 to 49-year-old group, most of them are actually from the 30 to 49-year-old group. And it gets worse and worse by age. Also, you have to consider that young people have also more life to lose. If a 90-year-old dies, it's still bad. But let's be honest, here his life expectancy anyway would be a couple of years, maybe. While a 30-year-old is less likely to die from corona, but also less likely to die from other causes. He has much more life to lose, really. Would this have been an approach that you lock down every 35-year-old plus? And I think I'm 37. Whew. and then let the other people work or go to school? Maybe, but then you also have to make sure that those people are not visiting each other without knowing they have it. So you can either look at how much more are people dying than usual, or you have to look at the whole group, I think. Because you also have to think about let's say New York is a young population, but they still have 30% of people that are in those groups that are likely to die. And for those people, it's even worse. This includes your father, your grandfather, your uncles, me. Also, again, just because they don't die from it doesn't mean they have a very severe disease that can cause maybe also damage to your lungs that might stay for a long time or forever. And looking at the COVID-19 death rate compared to your normal death rate shows that actually for most age groups, besides maybe kids, it is in the ballpark of your normal expectancy to die within a year. And yes, it's true that the chance of you dying from COVID-19 is not a multitude of your normal chance of dying within a year. I was tweeting this on February 15 already. The thing that surprised me when I first heard about it is that how big your chance of dying each year actually is. That surprised me. Realize how sick this actually is if everybody on the world has that chance doubled. These are the normal mortality numbers of the USA each year. 2.8 million deaths, heart disease, stroke, cancer. The Earth is a pretty scary place. And letting COVID-19 roam freely means you double all of that suffering. For every person on Earth. Well, technically, there's obviously differences. Younger people are not doubling it, older people are over doubling it, but the average, and it's not quite doubling, but gotta make a point here. In New York City, half of the people actually know somebody who is diagnosed with COVID-19. Remember, diagnosed does not mean all the people having COVID-19. So it means you would know several people likely that actually got COVID-19. Roughly 50% of all people in New York City know somebody that died of COVID-19. Now imagine in New York City there would not be 25% of the people having had COVID-19, but 3 times as much, 75% of the population. Do you want to know somebody that died of COVID-19? And that would be true not only for the people in New York City, but for everybody on Earth. Almost everybody on Earth would know somebody that died of COVID-19. That's how bad a doubling of that is. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention that also includes all of your friends and family and loved ones. It is a big deal.